Hey, coffee experts. Those of you running independent coffee shops, you're always looking for ways that you can drop your costs. And we here at the Coffee Experts Club really understand that. And so we've started something called Indie Coffee Coalition. And what it's designed to do is to drop your costs on two of the things that you're probably experiencing the highest sales volume in your store. And that is energy drink and frat mix. Those two line items, we've created our own products and are offering you those products at a reduced cost so that you can cut out the Red Bull of America. You can cut out the main lines of energy drinks that you're doing and serve your own energy drink at a reduced cost on a line item that you're probably already making a lot of sales on anyway. The best way that you can grow sales is by dropping your costs and maintaining a current volume. So check us out at indiecoffee.co and we'll love to tell you more there.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Hey, Coffee Experts Club, gentlemen. Welcome this morning. Good to see you. If you're thinking about building a location, so if you're tuning in for the first time and you're like, what's this show all about? We're here to help people with starting their first drive-through coffee, how to expand to 2 or 3, which is where we would say is the sweet spot where you're really going to start seeing revenue build for you as a business. Anyway, so this is our 3rd location we're opening in 2 weeks in Belize. First drive-through coffee in Belize, which is a pretty special thing. We're pretty excited about that. Drew and I are partners in that endeavor. Ben just built out the POS. Thank you, Ben, for setting up the 3rd iteration for POS. But anyway, so I was talking to Daryl, the contractor, and I said, hey, Daryl, when we first started up this whole contracting plan, I said, if you finish early, I'll send you and your wife on a trip.
Oh.
If you finish late, I'm going to charge you for every day that you're late. You know what I mean? So it's like just wanting him to understand like the blessing of, hey, you're going to be blessed by finishing early, and I'm going to be blessed if you finish late because I want to make sure that you know that we're not going to let this thing go long. So anyway, long story short, Daryl told us he'd give us like until the 13th, right? And so we've been working towards it, but he's been talking about finishing early. And so Megan had to ask for a time off work because my wife's a nurse, right? And she needs to have time off work for us to go down and be in Belize for the grand opening. So we set up these dates based upon what I thought it was going to be. And then Daryl's like, no, I want to go to the full contract length. I want to go to the 13th. I just don't want to rush it, right? So then last week, or maybe it was this week, I said to him, hey, so just so you know, I'm not trying to stress anybody out, but Megan and I are coming to town the week of the 13th because I had to give her dates. She's not able to switch those. So I don't want to stress everybody out, but if you're able to pull it off, it'd be really cool if we could do a grand opening the 13th. And he said, I think I can pull it off, which immediately shifted all the weight to Drew on like, it's a week earlier than what Drew is expecting. So Drew, how are you feeling with 2 weeks out to grand opening? How's your stress level?
Feeling good. I think we've done our prep work as much as we can. Realistically, the thing that holds, I think, us back on our timelines is just training the baristas, sourcing the talent and making sure that they're ready. But with the team that we have on the island, I mean, we've got 2 of our oldest veterans out there and, they know our culture, they know our way, and they've been doing training for a few weeks now. And we've been blessed to receive so many applicants. So as far as, equipment installs, the building, what held us back first time was the building.
I feel so good because I went back into our marketing plan, which you and I can review later on today on our call, but we didn't start promoting soft opening until 10 days before, like it was like the 24th, it was Christmas, right? Christmas Eve. I promoted soft opening. We were going to open January 5th. So it was like 10 days from when we were going to open. And when I looked at the picture of what I showed, I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, I thought I was stressed right now. Looking at the building where it was 10 days before opening, I'm like, that was psycho. And remember last time, it started making me feel really good that we didn't start promoting it until 10 days and that the building is so much further than it was 10 days. And then remember, like we had to hustle all the goods in. They weren't even done with the floors. And I'm like, hey, we got to get the goods in because Ben, we were storing, we had like $100,000 worth of like product just outside the building under a tarp. We had to have the construction guy leave one of his kids there to babysit it overnight, every night that we left it out there. And then the kid got stabbed one night in the hand because some drunk guy came by with a knife. Like all this stuff happened for our grand opening last time. And so I'm feeling like so good about it now. Because remember, Drew, we only trained those kids on the island for 2 days before we dumped on them the fire of grand opening last year. So I'm like, dude, we are sitting golden compared to location number 2.
Yeah, I think we're we're much more well supported.
That's a great little like piece of love for every coffee shop owner out there. We've been doing this. You guys have been doing this for years. We've opened so many locations, and even still to this point, it's always right up to the line for every owner out there who's like, man, I feel like I'm always just running around. Believe me, we've been doing it a while, and these guys still are right up to the line on it.
And there's so many unknowns, like not just the kid getting hurt or leaving all our stuff outside. We had a pallet of syrup get dropped, and then suddenly there was within 45 minutes, thousands of bees covering all of our product. And so we had to figure out how to dance to that fire.
Didn't you use like a torch? Didn't you have to like create like a man-made torch to get those things off?
I mean, a handheld torch. We lit up some high flammable smokable things and laid them out in between all the stuff, and slowly moved things away from the sugary boxes. But yeah, we smoked it. Took a long time, but we got it.
To the crazy things you have to deal with in Belize, Ben. For all the grand openings we've ever done, that grand opening, I'm like, we've never had swarms of bees, kid getting stabbed, getting all this stuff out back of the shop, putting all the stuff in before the floors. We were like, hey, is that half of the floors done so we could just move all the shit inside and put it in? And the contractor was so freaking pissed because the flooring guy's like, hey, we can't warranty that floor if they're stacking stuff on it so quick. Like, I threw so much stress wrenches at Drew and Daryl, the contractor, last round. So I'm feeling pretty good right now, Ben. I feels like we're like light years ahead of that.
I think you were feeling good last time too.
I came down all happy, like Drew. Everybody's pissed by the time Aaron's rolling in because I'm full stressing everybody out. So,
true story.
Anyway, so 2 weeks from grand opening, we're pretty excited about location number 3, first drive-through in Belize. And just a plug here, like I know a lot of people get stressed about drive-through coffee. I know a lot of people get nervous when you're opening your first one. It's all those things I get that. It's a lot of cash to outlay. I not realized that Drew and I had to outlay all cash, like no loans, because Belize, you have to pay all cash. So like, we get it. Like it's a lot of cash to outlay. And on top of that, it's exciting and it's fun, and don't miss it. And don't miss it for the stress, because it's doable. Drew and I are able to do it countries away. Now, Drew is down there a little bit more frequently these days that we have 3, but especially location 1 and 2, Drew is not down there all the time. You know what I mean? And I think just the awareness of, this can be a business that you run remote. This can be a business if your systems are tight enough. Now, obviously, you need to have tight systems, and we would love to help you set up your systems. We'd love to help you create that. Running a stand for somebody else is different than having all the systems dialed in a way that you could run a remote. But we would love to help with that. Coffee Experts Academy is the place to go for that. coffeeexpertsacademy.com, where we'll just take you by the hand and walk you through it step by step. But it is exciting, and I'm excited to be with Drew. I'll be down there, not this Monday, but the Monday following, which is pretty awesome. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Love it.
I thought we could talk today, boys. I think we're on a 2-part series, and it was helping your people see the vision, right? And we talked about how your employees are really your first customers. A lot of people don't realize it like that. And as much as we're trying to win our customers over, we need to be winning our employees over. And that a lot of that's, if you don't give them a vision, if you don't give them a path, if you don't show them where you're going, then they're going to treat it like a dead end job. You know what I mean? So how do you help them not treat it like a dead end job? Is by creating the vision for them and vision casting and showing them where you're going, and showing the growth is part of that. That's only going to help you as a business owner too, right? We talk about after location 3 is the magic. That's when you really start seeing some synergies happen between 3 locations and money really start rolling. For us in Belize, we had to eke out location 1. Location 1 paid for half of location 2. Location 1 and 2 paid for the complete build of location number 3, which feels really good because we're starting flush as we come into location 3, which means we're just turning the faucet on and money's going to start rolling. So that feels really good, but you have to have those things in place. And part of that is, as we grow, helping your people see. Like Drew said, our oldest veterans came from our first location. We moved them an hour and a half away and then an hour and a half by boat. You know what I mean? So we're on a totally different world now. They're on an island. None of them had lived on an island before. They hadn't lived on their own before. You know what I mean? Like Drew, we really stretched them, but these 2 kids have really leveled up and been powerful leaders. And now we're going to split those 2, and one's going to go with location 3 and one's going to stay at location 2. And we built teams underneath them. So helping people see the trajectory. But I thought this week we could talk about brass tacks. You know, it's really easy to be talking broad strokes, big vision, but what does that mean practically? And Ben, you and I created something pretty beautiful when it was the Roasters Days on helping like really bring a roadmap and like, what does this look like? Brass tacks. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we talked about it broadly a little bit last episode, and just giving your employees basically, we call them in our line of work one sheeters, but it's basically a one sheeter of like, this is your career, or this could be your career at our company. Here's where you start. Here's how you gain raises. Here's how you move up in positions. Here's how you can expect to get more dollars for your position. Here's where you cap. Here's where you go on to the next position. And here's the whole lineup of what you can do with a company. Obviously, even then we were still growing. So we were still creating positions. It's not to say that like, if you give them a roadmap, it's like, you have to have the whole thing planned out. Like I have to plan like what my company's going to look like when I have 20 locations. No, you give them what you have, and even still say like, hey, we're still growing. We're still adding positions. If you want to keep going at this point, it's endless what you can do with the company because we're growing. So I think starting with your baristas, what we did is we started with the baristas, and then we moved to the assistants. We moved to the managers, broke down, okay, as a barista, how long do we want a barista to be here? If we invest, it takes, a good 6 months by the time they're an actual solid barista. We'd like them to be here for at least 6 months longer than that. So we're talking about we'd like a barista here for a year. That's great. But what if we could get them to stay 18 months, 2 years? Okay. So let's break down, what does a barista look like in wages for 2 years? You start at this, maybe whatever minimum wage is, maybe slightly higher, and then break apart over the next 2 years. How often do I want to give them raises? Probably twice a year to keep them incentivized to stick around. Okay, so how do they earn those raises every 6 months? Let's break that down. They're doing reviews every 3 months. Okay, if they get 2 great scores on the reviews, they get a raise. Every 6 months, they can get a raise. And it's giving them that sort of broken down line by line item of like, here's what you can expect. Here's what I'm going to give you. All you have to do is meet my expectations and it's yours. That really lines it out for baristas. And we did the same for assistants and the same for managers.
So I think that, Drew, you lived in that environment. We talked about this a little bit last time, but like, as we start rolling that out, you had already ascended past just like the barista to an assistant, to a manager, to then you were up to a regional manager, I think, by the time we were rolling that out. And I think what you had talked about last time was just how it just felt good to finally get into a spot, because the way that the owner had previously done it was just like, hey, whenever he felt like giving you a raise, you got a raise, and whenever he felt like throwing some money at you, usually it was because he had gotten pissed, he yelled and screamed, felt bad about it, and then he bonused you out like a month later because that was his way of saying sorry without saying sorry. You know what I mean? So, but I think that for you, you felt like you experienced it really stabilizing.
Well, I think I was part of the cause for a lot of Ben's stresses because I was getting those random raises that made no sense. And,
What are we calling this guy for?
what happened between, 2 months ago and now. And yeah, and it was the Wild West at some point, and so having to structure it, I think, was super healthy for the business and healthy for me, because not only did it give me a sense of, how to shape my career path at Roasters, but how to guide people in the right direction. And the more stability we had in the business, the more respect we actually got from not just our customer base, which, increased over time, but also from our employees as well. I think people like to stay stable environment, and it allowed us to focus on other things. Things slowly break and the store machines break down, but that also holds true for your systems. So if you don't maintain them, if you don't update them, they don't fit your new business as things grow. And so the comfort, that I felt, it wasn't so random. I felt it was more purposeful. I really loved what I did, but not knowing when or if or how the next step was coming, it was more comfortable when those things were in place.
Yeah. And so I'm going to try and do this, guys. I might break the tech, but I'm going to try and share my screen. I know that we're doing a podcast. I know that you're not going to be able to see this unless you're watching on YouTube, but we actually broke it out with barista, like year 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
You're starting here, you're ending, like on this particular roadmap, it's like $11. You're ending at $13. And then we started talking in things like rev share. We had built out a plan where we realized like $13 isn't a ton to make, but if you can give them almost like an owner draw, an owner rev share, you're not going to change anything on your paperwork, but if they could see, hey, they're going to get a percentage of the winnings, it's going to create some loyalty, So we did like years 1, 2, 3, barista, this is your cap. Assistant years 1 and 2, here's your cap. Manager years 1 and 2, here's your cap. Then we're going to bump you up to a rev share that's a higher rev share than the assistant or the baristas. And then at year 3 and 4, this is what it's going to look like. And then this is your cap. And then at a regional, like here's where we're going to start you. Here's your cap. In 6 months, we're going to raise your rev share across all the locations in your region. And then you're going to have a cap from year 2 to year 3. And then you're not going to be able to grow much further than that unless you want to move up into upper management, which obviously that there are only so many of those slots that lead,
Mhm.
it starts at this year one, it ends at this at year three. And then your opportunity to make more than that is rev share. You're going to make 2% off of all of the shops because you're at upper level. And then I think that you're in a spot where you've created for them pay understandings. And now you're just beginning to roll it out. Now you're beginning to explain, okay, so you give some texture and they can see, oh, wait. And on that rev share percentage, it was incentivizing efficiencies. So how
Mhm.
much can you save? How much can you drive labor down? How can you make sure you stay on stores cost of goods so they're not just burning all of our money in inventory and then that's dropping our net profit for the month? Instead, hey, how can we create things that are more like level instead of way high peaks and way low drops because your manager isn't paying attention. So they way over order and then they don't have to order for the next month. And so there's a drop and then there's another peak a month after that because they have to way over order again. How can we create just like a homeostasis, just a standard so that we can begin to expect what the cogs are, so we can begin to expect what our net revenue is, so we can begin to piece that off and break off pieces in smaller increments to people and let them see, hey, we're going to treat you with more and more respect the longer you're here with us and give them some incentive to want to make it run better, to treat them like, I think the words that we used to use, Ben, was like a true merchant. Like this is as if this was your own store. Like, how can we give our people ownership to own it like it's their own store? And the way you do that is by, giving them a buy-in.
Mhm. And what I would recommend for those of you coffee shop owners in the States is just brass tacks when it comes to building out that wage plan, which I think is great what you guys did for DLM. You can see a very clear tier list of barista, assistant, manager, regional. I think maybe sometimes we take that for granted. A lot of coffee shop owners aren't thinking of structuring their pay for their employees in a tier like that. You want to incentivize their people to grow in rank with your company. So you want to incentivize being an assistant manager. You want to incentivize being a manager. I suggest every coffee shop owner look in your market because US wages, vary so widely. What's competitive and where you are right now? A competitive wage right now in Washington State is wildly different than a competitive wage in Oklahoma, for
That's
example.
right.
Like right now, if you want to be competitive in Washington State, a barista's got to be making 1750 just because of a minimum wage is so high.
Yep.
So see what's competitive in your state. Start there with your baristas. If that's $17, $13, $14, start there and then say, okay, how do I want to tier this up for my assistants? Okay, my assistants make $3 above my minimum starting wage. My managers make $5 above, and then just take that hierarchy and then split it out just like you did with DLM in okay, if I'm starting my baristas at $13 an hour, $17 an hour, in year two, they can go up by $1. In year three, they can go up by $1. Okay, now that means my assistants need to start above that. And then my managers need to start above that. So work your way from the ground up with your wage tier. And that way you don't run into a problem where a year two barista is making more than a year one manager. And your manager's like, why am I even a manager? I'll just go back to being a barista.
Right. Yeah. I think it's super smart. Drew, I know you're having some spotty internet. You have thoughts on that? You want me to keep on going?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways to motivate your kids to want to move up into business is to make sure your managers are out there. I know that when I started at Roasters, the managers were stressed, be a nice way.
Yep.
And they work a lot. They work a lot.
Oh man, Elon is failing us in the country of Belize. In all fairness, he didn't promise to be in Belize, but we've kind of pirated it down there and it still is working as long as you can see the stars selectively. So
Pirated Starman.
there we
Yep.
go. Drew, you're back. You're back.
I was just saying, make your managers comfortable because then it will inspire other kids to want to move up to, healthy challenges for those managers so that they grow and they like their jobs, and they're not out searching for other work. How can we support these young kids so they can support themselves?
It's really important.
That's great.
And I think too, think about ways that you can creatively incentivize as well. Maybe you're like, Aaron, I just don't have the ability to grow with that kind of a trajectory. I don't maybe have the ability. There are other people out there offering to pay for insurance. I can't afford to insure all my people. That's just not real. Think of ways that you can creatively do it. So the way Drew and I have done it down in Belize is we'll help out with some of their rent. It's expensive to live on the island, so can we offset some of their rent? And that's not as much as it might cost to do some more expensive perks or benefits, but at least it's helping them in some way and is making them see, hey, we want to be generous. Drew and I also talked about some sort of matching. They don't really have 401ks like we have them here down there. And so Drew and I talked about, well, could we match their vacation though? What if if they have vacation time and we say, hey, we're going to match your vacation time each year and give you that much more money to be towards a destination. So we'll pay for your resort stay for these days so that you can go out of town, so that we can actually encourage them to take vacations. They live in a country that doesn't necessarily encourage vacations. We're like, no, we want you to get breaks. So how can we help incentivize for that? And so as long as we're setting aside money, maybe it feels like a big lift, but not if you're setting aside money every month to help with these managers, and then only do that for your managers, like, or your assistants. Like, have a tiering system. We give some things to our managers, we give other things, or sorry, some things to assistants, but we give more to managers, so that we're creating this ascension. And I think that's really important. Like, think of perks that would benefit them. I know we've talked about it before. Some folks, it's like they'll pay for a cleaning service for their house of their main people, you know what I mean? Or they'll pay for a laundering service, or they'll pay for something where it's like, what's something that we can do that says we value you, and it's something, it's not just nothing,
Yeah. And honestly, values what they value. I mean, I remember back in the days when we were thinking about, health plans, insurance plans. I'm in my 20s. I'm like, I don't care about this. What do I
Yeah.
care about, like, health insurance when I'm 23? That just means that you're taking my money and I'm not going to use your service. But if you had given me like a vacation hours match, something that I would actually use, or maybe, an out of town stipend, sure, that's great. That would create value for me. So create those incentives for what your employees actually value. I think that's a great point. And I think also, whatever that system is, those incentives are, your payment structure is, be as open as possible. Because I think in the coffee industry, there's always this sort of guarded secret on who's making what. This manager's making that much, or that manager's making this much, or this. And it's all this guarded secret. But if you open that up, again, to Drew's point, you open up the incentive floodgate, because all of a sudden, as a barista, I go, my manager's making that much. I could be making that much. I could be getting that bonus. Holy
Yeah.
cow, I want to stick around your company. That sounds great. I would love to be here for years, because I see that you value your management, you value your assistant managers, you're paying them what they're really worth, and they seem to appreciate that. Sure, it may be stressful, to Drew's point, but if I come in at minimum wage and my manager is making $5, $10, $15 more than that, all of a sudden I get this huge ladder that I can climb, and it seems valuable. I'm going to stick around for that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, boys, it was a great day. Drew, I'm sorry that Elon is failing you so bad in Belize. Man, we'll try and do better for you next round.
I'll give them a call.
Man, all the prayers and good energy, send them our way for grand opening number 3 down in Belize. It's pretty exciting, and we could use all the help we can get, especially Drew. And yeah, Coffee Experts, great to be here with you another week, and we'll see you here next week. Ben and Drew, thank you guys. Always good to have you.
Yes. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, experts, we've got something really awesome that we do here at Coffee Experts Club, and that's called the My First Drive-Through Coffee Masterclass. So if you're opening your next coffee shop, I think a lot of times you may think to yourself, I know what goes into opening a coffee shop. I've been doing this for years, but maybe you've been doing it for somebody else. And maybe this is your first option of starting a coffee shop on your own. Or maybe you don't know anything about coffee and you're just like, I'm looking for a good investment opportunity. Starting a coffee shop seems like a good place to put it, and you're going to enter into it. But what you don't know is all the things that you don't know, right? And so what we've done with this masterclass is taken behind the scenes, how you find your first location, what you need to be thinking about in finding a location. We give you a gift in the masterclass where it's a step-by-step process of how you're opening your coffee shop, the different checkpoints you need from coming up with your plans and talking with the city, and then negotiating a lease. And then how do you build a team, and what are the different pieces you need to be thinking about? It's a great masterclass, door to door, start to finish, completely free on opening up your next coffee drive-through. So check it out. It's at myfirstdrivethrough.coffee, and it's a great masterclass. You won't regret it. We'll see you on the inside there.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-through at www.myfirstdrivethrough.coffee.